Veronica Harris Show. It's your host, Veronica Harris, here with my co-host. Who are you today, Gregory?
Captain Hurdles. All-American Hurdle.
Okay, Captain Hurdles, All-American Hurdle. Well, Gregory, you did have a brief track career until you retired at the age of 12. And why did you retire?
Felt like it was what left was there for me to accomplish. I had won the East Coast Invitational, after many, many years of placing second and third. I mean, once I won the East Coast Invitational, and remember at 10 years old, 11 years old, the whole East Coast is all my world. Like, yes. I don't even know what California, I have no conception of what California is. So to win the East Coast Invitational, like I said, what was left for me to do?
Yeah, that's true.
Sport.
That was a huge meeting. That was a huge meeting in Townsend, boy.
Yeah, we all went through that. We all went through that. And you know what? At that point, you said you had been running half your life, right, Gregory?
Yeah.
So it's time to retire.
and again, that's why in part one, I wanted people to understand what type of athlete track and field is. For those who don't know, I used to ask every season, could I not run anymore? Because it's painful. Like giving your all in a 400 meters or on a race, coming across that line and your heart getting ready to fall, bust through your chest, your thighs hurt, your calves hurt. That pain, I couldn't endure it. I don't know how you ran for so long. And then Barry, that's why I said, man, that's a special kind of athlete that'll run track at a high level, Olympic level, All-American level, then be a hurdler. And that's not to mention what you got to sacrifice as far as diet and social activities. Like, I know basketball players and football players, they're notorious for going out after the game or day before the game. Track athletes, y'all can't do that. Y'all can't shake it up in the club on Saturday night after the race. Or am I wrong? Y'all shaking it up at Seton Hall, bro?
I wasn't shaking it up at Seton Hall, but
y'all shaking it up at Rutgers.
They do. I know they do because they pay for it on Monday mornings.
That's true. Well, Gregory, let's get back to the show. Thank you, Gregory, for that great introduction. But let's bring us back to our guest here, Mr. Bruce Barry. How are you? Welcome for part two.
Real All-American.
I'm good. I appreciate it.
Nine-time All-American. So in our first part, we learned about your I don't want to say condition, but the thing with your sight, optic neurosis, which causes thing for your sight to be like as if you're looking through, binoculars, where things aren't in focus. You can't really see the details. You can see shapes and things of that nature, but you can't see the details. Now, you also told us that you were because you did retire from, you were a health and PE teacher. Now, we all know that kids can be quite, especially when they proceed, it's like they search for a weakness in their teachers, like any sign of weakness, and they are on it. How did you taught in some very challenging districts? So how did you manage?
Am I saying that? I call it the hood.
How did you manage to do that and be successful?
I think the biggest thing is, like you said, one, kids are going to try to find something, but two, the biggest thing with younger people is you have to respect them. And I always approach them with respect. I told them from Jump Street, look, y'all got jokes, not a problem. I can't see. This is what I have to read with my little gadget glass. This is what it is. Blase, blase. So I tell them up front. Now you got jokes. I can joke with the best of them. I grew up in the hood too, so we can play it all day. But if you get your feelings hurt, you brought it on yourself. And once they saw that, one, I wasn't trying to use my position to be in authority over them, but I was there to help them. And I could sort of speak their lingo and language, but they also know that they couldn't get away with murder, then once we developed that rapport, I mean, they became, my students became my best friends. They would take attendance for me, and I had a special way of taking attendance. I would write people's names down on index cards and put them in their spots on the gym floor, and then go around. And that's also how I would learn them. I would learn their body shape. I would learn their not their language, but the way their voice sounded. I could see their body composition, how tall, wide, fat, short, whatever. So that's how I would learn my students. And then, my colleagues used to always say, we'd be in the gym, be 120 kids. And I could pick a kid out and be like, Charlene, what are you doing? She'd be like, huh? And they would be like, how do you, well, I know her body type and I hear her loud mouth anyway. So I recognize it.
Mhm.
So once they knew that I was there to help them and I wasn't there as a person to make their life miserable, but to enhance their life, we would hit it off great.
So the technical term for your condition is called optic neurosis. Yes?
Right. Exactly.
Yes. So, and is it also mean that you're legally blind, or how is it like classified, I guess?
Well, there's certain classifications of legal blindness, and the classification I fall under is called travel blindness, which means I can move around without the assistance or aid of a dog, a cane, a person. So I have travel blindness, so I can travel without any aid. Then other types of legal blindness, you need an aid, and that's just labeled legally blind. So that's where the difference comes in with me.
I want to ask you this, and Veronica, I kind of know how you feel about it, but I want you to chime in as well. Today's athlete, today's student, are you frustrated with their with some of their attitudes, their mentality, some of their abilities, the lack of ability to today's student, today's athlete, especially when going through what you went through?
I think we talk about it a lot as a coaching staff. They're not built the same way we were. They don't have that determination, that dedication. They don't have that intestinal fortitude to press through things. These kids break very easily. They falter very easily. This is the me generation, and if they aren't comfortable, they will shut down, and you lose them. So from when I first began coaching to now, my coaching style has changed 1.5%. Some people may say, well, dang, coach, you've calmed down a little bit. You're not always flipping off at the handle. They still catch it, but sometimes even my training methods have calmed down, because if I put a kid through this type of workout and I know that they're not ready for it, we probably won't see them again. And,
Just lost one.
That's the worst feeling. I hate it. I hate it. You constantly find yourself, and you sound like that old dude, like, yo, when I was running, I remember this time when, and I try to pull back away from that because they just don't understand it. Or I may tell them some things, and they'll be like, huh? You did what? Y'all did that? I mean, we came back from a meet one time, and we flew into Birmingham Airport, and we landed about 12:30 at night. We drove an hour to Tuscaloosa. We get to the Coliseum, getting ready to go into the locker room. Coach said no. He walked out onto the track and turned the lights on. This 2 o'clock in the morning, and he made us run a workout because of how we performed that afternoon in Indiana at a meet. He was so livid. I try that with those kids now, I wouldn't see him anymore.
Plus, you probably had a chance of somebody come and talk to you, be like, Coach Barry, we got to talk about, we can't have any 2 a.m. in the morning practices.
Exactly. Right.
So now we're going to talk about some of the things that you have done, Coach Barry, to just challenge yourself, because when you found out you had the optic neurosis, and life was changing for you, you decided to do some things that I don't think most people would do. So after you graduated from University of Alabama, Roll Tide, Roll Tide, you took the MCATs, you took the LSATs, you took the GMATs, and you took the GREs. You ended up going to Columbia University for your master's program. And why would you, like, I know people that spend years and lots of money to prepare for the MCATs, the LSATs, the GMATs, the GREs, and you didn't do all that. You was just like, I'm taking these, I just want to see what's going to happen. Why?
Well, I hadn't graduated yet. I was on my way to graduate, and I was graduating in May. Okay. So it was February, March, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I mean, my lifelong dream was to be a super spy. I wanted to be in the Secret Service. I wanted to be in the FBI, the CIA. I wanted to pursue that. But I know I couldn't do it because, obviously, because of my vision. So I was trying to really figure out what I wanted to do, and really had no clue. And time was sort of ticking, and I said, you know what? I need to prove to myself that I can achieve anything that I want to achieve. So I knew people and had friends that they had talked about, the graduate school tests and things like that, and the GREs and the MCATs, and I said, well, sure, I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take every test there is. As far as money, you hit it right on it. I went to University of Alabama. Their budget was kind of big. I didn't worry about taking standardized. We didn't worry about tests like that. So I took the MCATs, and it was back then it was an 11-hour test. It took me 15 hours to do. Now it's just a straight 9-hour test. I took the LSATs, and I took the GMATs and the GREs, and based off my test results, I got contacted by Johns Hopkins University, and they wanted to pay 80% of my med school because of my score. And I got contacted by the University of Chicago Law School, and they wanted to pay 80%. And Wharton School of Business, I got accepted into, and I got accepted into Columbia. I had no aspirations whatsoever to go to med school, law school, any of that. So I just won it. Now, I just woke up the morning of the test. I didn't study. For the LSATs, I looked at some test taking hints, because the LSATs you really can't study for. It's more of a theory type test. You've got to use a lot of deductive reasoning and things like that. So I sort of looked at some things on how to go about approaching those, but the MCATs, GREs, the GMATs.
Like who just wakes up and says, I want to take these tests? Like, the thought of me, because I had thought about becoming a doctor, and just the thought of taking the MCATs, I was just like, I couldn't, but for somebody to say, oh, I'm just going to get up and I'm just going to sign up for this test, I'm going to take it. I'm just like, what? And you didn't do what now? I had a friend, she's currently in law school, and she was preparing for her LSATs. And, I kind of helped her out because, being a teacher, you can help people study, and you can help people, pick up tips and things about how to study and how to learn what they need to learn. Right. And I was like, oh my God, you got to know what, and this and that. And now, and I mean, she passed, but I'm just like, who does that? Like, and if any student says to me, I can't do something, I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's hearing your story, just hearing your story, I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like
that was the mentality. That was the mentality that I took, because again, there were things on these tests that I had never even explored. I never even took a class for it. So my mentality was, the things I know, I'm going to do the best at them. The things I don't, I'm going to take an educated guess at it. But it was more of the process. It was more of, I needed to take the test to prove that I could have some level of success on it. and that I could endure it also. So again, there were no expectations I had. It was just, whatever you don't know, you're going deductive reasoning.
We'll figure it out.
Whatever sounds the best, you know, and go with that. And it did get sort of towards maybe the last half hour. I was just like almost drawing pictures, like whatever, because I was just done. But yeah, it was a goal. It was proving to myself that I had the aptitude to be successful in anything that I wanted to pursue.
Now, speaking of which, anything that you want to pursue. Now, you are a family man, you have a husband, you're a father. Now, talk to me about, now you actually, your daughter, Brittany, lovely young lady. You actually adopted a daughter. You wanted a family, but you adopted a daughter because you didn't want, why, you say?
Well, with optic neurosis, up until about 7, 8 years ago, they didn't really know what caused it. I've gone through multiple CAT scans, MRIs, spinal taps, all literally around the world. And they still didn't know what it is or what caused it. They believed multiple sclerosis caused it. They believed, it had something to do with some DNA, but they didn't really know what it was. So when we were discussing about having a family, I was like, I ain't gonna pass this off. This happened to me in my teenage years. If I passed this along to a child, how would they handle this if they were 4 or 5 years old? Now I know kids are resilient, but how would I handle it if all of a sudden my healthy son or daughter all of a sudden becomes handicapped like me? I couldn't do it. I said I wasn't going to do it. And Angie agreed. She was in agreement. She was like, I'm with you on that.
Now, and so even with your limited vision, it never stopped you from going to anything that you needed to go to for your daughter, for taking her anywhere, or for being wherever you needed to be for that.
No. Thank God for public transportation and friends and cabs and all of that. Now you got Uber and Lyft. When she was soccer games and things like that, I had to do what needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get there. When I finish practice, I'll be there.
Right.
You just do what you got to do. You got to adapt. I mean, adaptability. That's the key thing. And that's what I try to get across to our athletes. Y'all don't know how to adapt to things. Everything's got to be A, B, C, D with them. Nah, sometimes it may be A, D, and then you got to figure out the other stuff in between.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not going to always go your way.
Mm-hmm. See, Gregory, just like I say, be like water. I
That's
say
your
that.
favorite one. Be like
That's my
water. Be
favorite one.
adaptable.
Now let's
Bruce
talk
Lee.
about some of the fun things that you do, because you're big into football, as we can see in your man cave down there with the
Yeah.
Alabama and everything. How do you experience, live sporting events?
Pay good money for good seats, so I'm closer, and use my binocular.
So speaking of adaptation, you also are a very good golfer. You're a very
I
good
ain't gonna say
golfer.
I'm good. I get out there. You
Well, you
just
actually
matter.
out you
You
actually out
called
there
when you
today.
called me today. I was on the course. I
Was
was
on the golf
putting when you
course.
were talking. I was like,
Right.
let me get this putt together.
So how are you able to manage playing golf? Because again, you got to be able to see, and it is a technical. I mean, they say that's one of the most frustrating sports there
No
is.
doubt.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you manage to be? I don't care what you say. If you can get out there, if you can hit the ball in the hole, you're successful as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's just little nuances. I mean, you got friends. I mean, I got friends that have been boys for over 40 years with, and so they watch the ball. I have to, if I'm getting ready to hit, I got to make sure, y'all got me, and they follow the ball, they track the ball for me. When we're looking for the ball, they'll find it, and they may drop their hat next to it and be like, "Yo, it's here." Sometimes they play around, and I know sometimes when I hit a really good shot or whatever, And I'll be like, y'all see it? They'd be like, yeah, it's in the woods somewhere. I'll be like, no, it's not. No, it's not, because I see your face. And I said, y'all bugging right now. Or if I had a long putt, if I have a long putt and I really can't see I definitely can't see the hole, but I can see the flag. I'll just ask one of them. I said, just stand by the flag so I can get a judgment of, how far I am and what I have to do. So friends, but the whole key to that was learning how to, again, when I talked about in the last year, mastering your craft and what you want to do. I took lessons on how to hold the club the correct way, how to actually swing the correct way. So I got my parts together on what I needed to do to be a successful golfer. And then once I worked on me, then the bigger picture could take care of itself. You got your boys helping me out. I got my wife helping me out.
I want to say, I'll
Don't you play
propose.
golf, Gregory? Don't you try?
Yeah, like you said, I get out there.
Right.
I'll propose though. Um, losing one sense heightens other senses.
Yeah.
So by him not seeing so good might help him focus on other things, which makes him be pretty good. Now I knew a guy, he had really good range, like he was a great shooter.
Okay.
Come to find out, he was half blind. Like when you see him in the street, he had glasses. I'm like, well, damn, you need to, good vision to be able to shoot from range. But now that you
Muscle
mentioned
memory.
what you
He
said about
feels it.
golf, made me think there's a correlation. When you lose your vision, you kind of gotta gauge things a different way, and not having that direct or that detailed look kind of makes you just, okay, I'm not focusing in on that target per se, but I know if I can get my swing good, or my grip good, or my feet good, that'll get me where I want to go.
Exactly. I mean, that's the bottom line. You hear a lot of people who talk about, well, where they strike it on the club. I don't worry about where I hit it on the club face. I have to worry about that I'm using a pendulum action, that I'm actually bringing it back, that I'm keeping my arm straight, and then just let sort of nature take over from there.
It's kind of interesting you say you focus on the details, because you have admitted or said right here on the show that you can't see details. Like what you can see is the bigger picture, like the shapes, the composition of things, but the details is what you can't see, but that is what you focus on. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's it may sound kind of backwards, but again, it's like Gregory said, it's the grip, it's my stance, where the ball is in my stance, making sure that I can swing. And this is particularly with golf, making sure that I can swing, not breaking my right arm when I swing, making sure my left arm pulls my right arm through. So those little details, that when I say it like that, or if I'm dealing with an athlete, I'm concentrating on this one particular aspect.
Yeah, you kind of skipped over. I wanted the audience to hear about how frustrated you are, and hear how what was your take on today's student, today's athlete. You kind of skipped over that. Maybe you want to say that for another show, or you want to
I'll say that for another show.
Now?
I'll say that for another show, but suffice to say, I am in total agreement with what Coach Barry said. It's the lack of adaptability and the inability to be like water. Like really, you gotta be able to, things are not gonna go the way you want it to. You have to be able to figure it out. Like mommy always taught us, Gregory, and you know this to be true. Like if one thing didn't work, we was on to the next. Mommy wasn't waiting for the next thing. If it didn't work, it didn't work. We just kept on going to the next thing. And she wasn't having it. We fall out, be depressed and all that stuff. Mommy said, you got 5 minutes to get your act together. And then we go on to the next. That's how it was.
Well, for me, I think I'm gonna give up a sense in order to heighten something else.
Why you are so weird? You always
do that.
I'm gonna start wearing earplugs to make my other senses stronger.
Gregory, I
What do you
don't think
think?
that's a good idea.
What? Deafen my
I used to-
ears so
I
no.
used to do that in health class. I used to do that in health class. That was a section where I had blackout goggles or ear things, and would have them have to work in a group with a blind with a person who's blind, and so they all had to experience. So they it was more from a compassion standpoint to understand what someone goes through, because I believe if you can understand, as the old adage says, if you can walk a mile in their sneakers, then you can understand them. So I did that to build compassion in my students, to say, hey, you know what? The world isn't against you, because there are people like this in the world. And imagine if you were like this. And they would have to do just simple tasks like just get across the classroom, desks flying all over the place and things like that. And so, they really held fast to that one. They were like, wow, now we get it. So, little things like that, just to try to help them be better people. That's all.
Coach, in
Right.
addition to all the many different things that you do, you are definitely very much into giving back. And I know recently you did something for your high school coach who unfortunately passed away. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I had my high school coach, Joe Suriano. I think he was a legend in the town of West Orange. I mean, this guy was there for me and other student athletes, and I wanted to give something back, so they would remember him. He passed away from COVID last April, and I wanted to give something back, and it was really a devastating loss, because he was almost like a second father to me, and he was a mentor, he was a disciplinarian, he was everything. He really was. And so I wanted to give it back. So I said, you know what? Let's create a track meet. And so we created the Joe Suriano Memorial Invitation, Track and Field Invitational. And I told the Board of Education, and I told the principal of the high school and the head track coach, I said, I'm going to sponsor it all. And any of the proceeds I want it turned into a scholarship in Coach Suriano's name. Well, we were able to get 2 scholarships, one male, one female, to an athlete. They had to apply for the scholarship, and they ended up getting $2,900 each.
Wow.
And we still have a good substantial bit of money left over. So we're going to put it on again next year.
Mm-hmm.
We also do a thing that I created called Christmas from Coach, where this year I picked a family in West Orange that was I felt deserved it. This family had just right before Christmas lost their father to COVID. It was 4 kids and a wife, and I was able to get $1,000 in a gift certificate to Kmart for them for Christmas.
Wow.
So those are 2 things that I want to continue in Coach Suriano's name, because that's how he was.
Right.
He gave you everything. He gave you what you needed to be successful, and I owed him that.
And that is so awesome that you are able to continue to do that for someone who gave a lot to you. You continue to give, and I just think it's even, I hate to say about what you lost, because yes, you lost, your vision isn't as good as it could have been. Like, remember, I think you told me one time you had 20/10 sight, like jet fighter sight. Right. But even what you quote unquote may have lost, you have gained so much, and you continue to give. You don't focus on what was taken, you focus on what you can give. And I just think that's what we all need to do. Like, COVID has taken a lot away from all of us, but yet we need to focus on what we can give to each other. Right, Gregory? I agree
wholeheartedly. I just like to be on the receiving end more so than the giving end.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah, and that's why Gregory, that's why you my big little brother. Love you.
I love you too. Oh,
that's a moment right there.
I'm a shake my wig.
Deuces.